Hi everyone, my name is Shauna in case you don't know, and welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm going to be doing my September reading wrap up. I read 8 books in the month of September and my average star rating is 3.25 stars, and I considered anything over 3 stars to be a good month because it means that I enjoyed most if not all of my books that I read in the month. September was like a decent month for me, I'd say. I feel like I had the first breakthrough in my depression that I've had in like over a year. Like I felt like the past year was very at a low point, and now I am not great, but like I feel like I've had somewhat of a breakthrough. Like I'm not spiraling as much this month, and it's because my therapist was like, I think you may be neurodivergent, let's calculate that in to how we approach therapy. It just helped a bit, and I just wanted to update you on that because I know that I talk about my mental health on my channel a lot, and there was a lot of videos in the past year where I've sort of told you how much I'm struggling, and I feel like this is the first bit of good news for mental health that I've had in a while. I also finished writing the first draft of my book in September, which is super fun. This is the first time that I have written a book and finished it to completion. I'm now in the revising stages, but this class that I'm taking this term is taking up a lot of my time, so I don't know if I'll be able to finish even the first revision this term because the term ends early December. I'm taking a class right now about women's activism and social change, and there is just a lot of reading with this professor, which I knew would probably be the case because this is my 3rd term with this professor, but it sort of is the way that it is, you know. But hopefully I can figure out how to manage my time better so I can start working on my book more. But that being said, I wanted to go over the books that I read. I have not really had as much time to read recently. I have a senior dog, and as she's getting older, she has been very barky and demanding attention. I think she gets lonely, and I think she forgets sometimes where people are in the house, and also she has one leg that's really weak, and so she always is like wanting us to flip her so that she can stand up, and even then she sometimes struggles to stand up on her own. So a lot of the time during the time that I normally read, she's barking and stuff, so I haven't been reading as much, I feel like, recently. So the way that I view it, to go over my brain and how it works a little bit, my OCD, my brain tells me I need to read at least 50 pages a day. 50 pages is like minimum. On a good reading night, I can read up to 100 pages, but if I'm only reading the bare minimum of 50, I'm obviously not going through books as quickly, and also it means that I'm not able to focus for the full like 2 hours or so that I dedicate to reading every night. So I've been having a lot of nights where I've just been hitting the bare minimum and not reading more than that, which is fine. It's just the way that it has to be right now, but it does get a little frustrating sometimes. So a lot of the books I read this month were shorter books. I only read 2 longer books this month. But without further ado, now that I've given all the sorts of life updates, let's get into the books that I read in the month of September. So the first book I read was one that I was actually hoping to finish in August, and I wasn't able to finish it in August, and that is The Sunbearer Trials by Aiden Thomas. I wanted to finish this in August because Aiden Thomas was at the Comic-Con that I went to at the start of the month. I went to 2 cons in September, and he was at Rose City, and I was hoping to finish this one and get it signed, but I didn't get it finished in time, so I didn't end up getting it signed. But one of my friends that I was hanging out with wanted to meet Aiden Thomas to get books signed for their partner, and so I went with them. So I did see Aiden while I was there. I just didn't get the book signed. But Aiden is like local to me. He's at tons of events, so there is a chance that I can meet Aiden again in the future. Anyways, enough about that. Let's get into this book. So this book is a young adult fantasy book with trans and queer rep in it, and basically it's about this world that's inspired by Latinx mythology, and all of the gods have kids, and it's following the semidioses, the kids of the gods. And every decade these semidioses are entered into a competition that ends up deadly, because the goal is that someone will win the competition and that person will have to kill one of their competitors, and that competitor's life after they die will fuel the sunstone, and the sunstone keeps the bad gods trapped up in the sky. The gods are separated between golds and jades, so golds have a lot more powers. They're like stronger and stuff like that. They've trained for the competition their whole life, and the jades are the lesser gods. So we follow Tio right here, and he is a jade semidios. And jades aren't normally chosen, so he goes to the ceremony not thinking anything of it, but for the first time ever, 2 jades are selected for the Sunbearer Trials. So this is his fight for survival and trying to survive in this competition where he is matched with all these gold semidioses that are extremely strong and a lot more powerful than him, and it's his journey, obviously, of trying to compete in the Sunbearer Trials and to stay alive. I really liked this one. I think Aidan Thomas's books are a bit dense at times, which is the reason that this isn't a 5-star read for me. And I think it just has to do with pacing and writing and stuff, which is fine. Like, that happens in books. A 4-star book is still a really solid book, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. However, everything else about this book was done so well. I loved a lot of the characters. My favorite characters were probably Zio. Oh my god, okay, I may have said his name wrong. I took Spanish for 2 years in college and a buttload of years in middle school and high school. X is the one letter that I can never remember how it's pronounced, so I may have butchered his name. And I also really liked Desi and Aurelio. I think that it's just a great cast of characters, and those ones in particular really stood out to me. I also just like love deadly competitions in books. Like, any sort of deadly competition I love, and I love the mythology that was woven into here, and I feel like that mixed with the deadly competition just worked really well. The world building in here was also done really well, and I love the world building in here. In particular, I really liked how the LGBTQ representation wasn't just in here, it was interwoven into the world building. And I thought that was a really unique way to incorporate the LGBTQ plus representation in here. I obviously gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. As I said, it was a really solid book. I am hoping to get my hands on the second book soon, but the second book is so new that I'm having a hard time finding a used copy, so it might be a little while before I end up reading the second book. Although maybe I could get it on my Kindle for cheaper. I don't know. Just, you know, sometimes it's hard to justify buying a book for $18.99. Like $15 or under, I do it in a heartbeat. I don't even think about it. When it's like over $15, I'm always like, I don't know if I can really justify that. So I'll probably get it later when it's used, or, you know, sometimes I treat myself at events, and I'm going to the Portland Book Festival soon, so maybe I'll treat myself there. I don't know. I haven't really decided when I'm going to get the second book yet. Then I saw that some new volumes of Kimetsu Academy were out on the Shonen Jump app, so I read them. So I read, first of all, volume 5. The original creator of Demon Slayer is Koyoharu Gotage, so obviously Kimetsu Academy is the school AU of Demon Slayer. It's based off of the main manga series. However, this series is written by Natsuki Hakami, and honestly, Natsuki does a really great job of keeping the characters' personalities alive really well and writing these characters into a different universe than what you normally see them in. This one was cute. I think that a lot of them are cute, but nothing like too amazing, and I would say that that is basically how I feel about this volume in particular. In this volume in particular, I really liked how Shinjiro was represented, who is Rengoku's dad, and I also really liked the funny moments that were in chapter 25, which is one of the later chapters, if not the final chapter in this one. I don't remember which chapters are exactly in volume 5, but I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars, which is the general gist of what I have given most of the Kimetsu Academy volumes so far. Occasionally I would give them a 4 or 5 star, but this one's just a 3 star. Then I read another manga. I read Kakegurui Volume 3. This story is by Homura Kawamoto. I love the Kakegurui series because I really like some of the characters. Like, they have really great character development in this series. I also really like the gambling aspect because this series is about a school where the whole social hierarchy is based off of gambling. I will forever have an issue with the way that this series sexualizes minors, though. I cannot stand it, and it's a huge problem, and it feels very fan servicey. And this one was really bad because this is the one that focuses on Midari. Midari, in case you don't know, is the most sexualized character in the entirety of this series. I cannot stand her. Like, if she wasn't so sexualized and she was more just like a wild personality, I think she would work really well in here. But she's just so hypersexualized, and it's really gross. There was some good things about volume 3 though. I think that Mary really starts her development here into a character that I end up really liking, because she starts off really rough in this series, but she sort of starts to show more morals in this one. I also really like the ESP cards and how the author incorporated them into the story. Particularly, it seems like the author did like a lot of research into them, and I really appreciate how at the end of every volume it goes into the specific gambling that was in the volume, and it goes into what it looks like in the real world and some of the research the author put into it. I ended up giving this volume 3 out of 5 stars. I think the other volumes will be better. I liked the previous volumes better. I just cannot stand Midari. So that is why this is a 3-star instead of a 4-star. I don't think any of them will be 5 stars ever because of the sexualization. However, it's still a decent series if you ignore that element of the series. And then on the Shonen Jump app, I read Moriarty the Patriot Volume 5. Moriarty the Patriot is a series that focuses on Moriarty, obviously Sherlock Holmes's foe from the series, and it sort of paints him as a little bit of a hero, a little bit anti-hero, I guess I'd say. He's doing his criminal acts for good purposes, and it's an interesting take on Sherlock Holmes and that whole universe. Volume 5 in particular was very heavily focused on Sherlock and John, and I feel like the Moriarty brothers is where I fell in love with the series. So it's not that I hated reading Sherlock and John, I just prefer the volumes that focus on the Moriarty brothers. Irene Adler was also introduced in this volume, and I'm not the biggest fan of the way that she's portrayed in this volume. However, I am really interested in seeing how her character arc will play out in this series and how she'll influence the plot of the series. So I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars. I've liked all of the Moriarty the Patriot volumes that I've read so far, just some are better than others in my opinion, and this one is one that was just it was good, it just wasn't as good as some of the other ones, you know. I just want it to go back to the Moriarty brothers. They are what I love most about this series, and I hope that volume 6 goes back to them a little more. However, based on the way that volume 5 ends, I feel like it's going to be focused on Sherlock and John for a bit longer before it goes back to the Moriarty brothers. I felt like I was losing my voice at the end of talking about volume 5 for some reason. Anyways, we're gonna go into another manga from the Shonen Jump app. I think the ordering got a little mixed up on Goodreads because I want to say that I actually read a different book first. Sometimes when I read a book that I finish in one day, for example a volume of a manga, and I read multiple short ones in one day, it'll mess up the order on Goodreads. So I don't think that I read this one next, but we're just gonna go with the order that Goodreads has listed. And this one is volume 6 of the Kimetsu Academy series, and this is the final volume of the series, which is so sad. The series was so cute and so fun, and I mean, I understand why I didn't go on longer. However, I don't know, it was just a fun escape for me because I really love these characters. My favorite thing about this volume in particular was how it portrayed a lot of the side characters and how it gave them some screen time, page time, because it's not on the screen, how it gave them some page time that the rest of the series doesn't really necessarily devote so much time to them and to looking at their positive traits. In particular, there's a whole chapter on Umi, who she is Daki in case you don't know, and so that chapter was really interesting to me and I really liked how she was portrayed. And there's also a chapter that was solely focused on the extreme side characters, which I really liked. Masachika, I forget who he is sometimes. So whenever he's focused on in the series, I really appreciate it because I feel like he's a character who definitely had a role in the series, but he's such a small character that I feel like he's someone who's easy to forget. And yeah, I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars. It was cute, it was nothing special. I'm sad that the series is done, but I'm hopeful that maybe someday we'll get a different Demon Slayer spin-off series or something that just gives us more time with these characters because it's so popular and there's so much room to explore the series that I feel like there's a potential for more Demon Slayer stories in the future. I know I still have the light novels to read, but I think that's all I have left to read because I've read Corpse Records, I've read the main series, I've read all of Kimetsu Academy. So I think it's just the light novels, which is so sad. I need more Demon Slayer. My hyperfixation on Demon Slayer was really strong in September. And then the one that I think I read before I read Kimetsu Academy Volume 6 was Legend, but this is the graphic novel version. It's by Maria Liu and it is adapted by Lei Dragoon. So obviously the Legend series is classic YA dystopian. It follows these two teens and basically Day is a fugitive, he's on the run, and June is a prodigy. She got a perfect score on this huge exam that everyone has to go through. Day is a fugitive though because he failed the exam and his life was basically over after that. So it is a romance and it is very heavily dystopian. It is very a gritty, heavily dystopian. There's a lot to it that is intense, but it's so good and I love it so much. And reading this made me want to reread the Legend trilogy because I just love it so much. And I love how the Legend trilogy has the 3 main ones that are gritty dystopian, classic dystopian, and then the 4th one has more of a sci-fi dystopian element in Antarctica that's a very different vibe from the rest of the series. But I really love all 4 of them and they work really well. I'm hoping to read the other 2 graphic novels at some point and then maybe if I get around to it, rereading the series soon because I love it so much and this just brought back my joy for the series so much. Obviously, there's a lot that is just skimmed over because they had to shorten it down for a graphic novel. However, it still was really good, so I give it 4 out of 5 stars. And then I reread Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I also need to like actually do the videos that I did all these sticky notes for, because I flagged minor characters and I was planning on doing like a whole series where I like dived into minor characters and all of their appearances in the series and what it means for the series and their role in the series and stuff, but I just haven't done that yet. But I've marked like, how many characters did I mark in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I've marked 10 side characters total in the series. So I have 10 long videos I need to make, but I keep putting it off for some reason. Anyways, I read this one and of course I love it because I love all of the Harry Potter books. It's my favorite series. It's my comfort series that I reread every single year. There were 2 things that really stood out to me with this reread. First of all, I find it interesting that there's a scene in here where Dumbledore consults the metal instruments on his desk and basically a 2-headed serpent pops up, and it's never really fully explained, and I've always wondered about it, and I finally looked it up, and apparently it is the moment when Dumbledore realizes that Nagini is a Horcrux, which I find is super interesting that it was just randomly in the 5th book and is very overlooked. I also was thinking so much about how the possession scene in the movie hits so much harder for me, and like my favorite quote isn't in this book, and I find it so interesting because you get sort of like Dumbledore's explanation of like, oh, Voldemort couldn't be in your body because you have too much love in you, you're too pure of heart. But in the movie, it's so powerful to me when Voldemort is expelled from Harry's body, not only because of Daniel Radcliffe's performance, but also because Harry shows genuine remorse and pity for Voldemort because of Voldemort's inability to love. And I just really love the way that it was done in the movie, and I always find it so weird when I'm rereading this book and I'm like, yep, my favorite scene and quote is not even in this book. It is just purely a move me moment. And I know why people hate on the movies so much, but the movies also have just so many scenes where I really like the changes that were made from the books to the movies. So of course, Order of the Phoenix was a 5-star read for me. I'm running out of phone storage and my phone's also at 2%, so let's talk really fast for the last book that I read. The last book that I read was the first book in a Doctor's Touch series, and this is called The Accident. It is by Evelyn White. This basically follows this woman who got into a car wreck and she's broken multiple limbs, and so she is unable to live on her own right now, and so a doctor gets assigned to go live at home with her and be her at-home doctor, and romance pursues from there. Beyond the fact that it's like very morally wrong what happened, I was also really frustrated by the fact that there was just so many glaring inaccuracies about the way that the healthcare system works. I am someone who was in a hospital for a while in 2020, and I was unable to do a lot of my own basic functions, and so I understand how the healthcare system works. So as someone who had to be hospitalized and rely on the healthcare system to make it by, I'm really frustrated by the inaccuracies in this book. And also this book was insta-love, but it was very unrealistic insta-love that really irked me because of the position that the female main character was in, and also because she constantly describes herself as not looking very attractive because of a haircut she was given in order to save her life. So I ended up giving this one 1 out of 5 stars. It was not great. It was nothing special. So those were all the books that I read this month. I hope all of you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to me if you haven't already. I try and upload at least 1 longer video to my channel per week, but every single day on my YouTube shorts I am uploading cosplay content, so feel free to check out my YouTube shorts if you want to see some of my cosplays. Until next time everyone, goodbye.